The university campus library yesterday. More than 80 were arrested. And all this comes just hours after college presidents apologized for mishandling anti-Semitism on their campuses. And things got testy during yesterday's hearing. New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik questioning Haverford College President Wendy Raymond.
Was there any disciplinary action taken against that group or those individuals?
Those kinds of statements are...
You were the one university president who failed to lay out if any disciplinary action has been taken, if any suspensions or expulsions. So I am asking you, was there any disciplinary action taken?
Disciplinary action can include expulsion and...
I'm not asking what it can include. I'm asking, was it taken?
I will not be talking about individual cases here.
A House hearing was held yesterday to talk about women's rights. But one witness had trouble with the definition of a female when questioned by Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
What do you consider a female? What is a female?
And so there are some women who were assigned a female.
You say you're here to defend women. You say you're here to defend women, but shouldn't you be able to define one?
The Federal Reserve keeps interest rates unchanged, citing economic uncertainty resulting from President Trump's tariff policy. But National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett criticizes the Fed and investors for doubting the president's agenda.
I'm dismayed that they've got bad economic modeling of what might happen to tariffs. They said, if you look at the Wall Street folks, they're saying that the tariffs are going to crater the economy. Meanwhile, we got really strong jobs and we don't have the inflation that they said was going to happen.
Meanwhile, some Canadian conservatives believe President Trump's promise of stiff tariffs on our northern neighbor could have a devastating effect on the Canadian economy.
During the Tuesday meeting between the two leaders, President Trump went out of his way to compliment Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Canada, despite the fact that he continued to express his desire to make Canada the 51st U.S. state. Carney responded by saying Canada is not for sale. And there is the question of tariffs. Brian Rushfeld is the former executive director of Canada Family Action.
How I see it is Trump is playing right into Carney's plan. Carney's plan is to destroy the economy of Canada so that Klaus Schwab, the WEF, and the socialists can take over the nation. What's happening with Trump's tariffs is he's doing it for the right reason from his side of the fence, but it's also playing perfectly into the hands of Carney and his evil crowd.
Dr. Charles McVitie is president of Canada Christian College. He predicts a major depression could beset Canada.
Because our economies are so intertwined, we could be looking at 20 to 30% unemployment, riots in the streets. If we lose the auto industry, we lose the steel and aluminum industry, and those appear to be gone already. And I don't see Mark Carney doing anything to stop the economic tragedy that is about to befall Canada.
I'm Chad Groening.
Republicans are disillusioned with the courts as President Donald Trump continues to have his executive orders blocked by district judges. Texas Congressman Chip Roy urges his fellow Republicans in the House to limit the power of the courts.
Republicans in the reconciliation package should be using our power of the purse and our ability to deal with jurisdiction of the courts to say, wait a minute, why do these D.C. courts have so much power? Why does Boasberg have so much power? Why shouldn't we limit the breadth of what they can do?
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Thursday, May the 8th, 2025. And in studio with me today is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Fred Jackson.
Hi there, Tim.
And Chris Woodward.
Hello.
So Ray Pritchard is MIA today, and
that's why I'm in.
That you're filling in for him. You pinch hitting. It's baseball season.
Came off the bench.
Ready to swing the bat.
Well, I'm ready.
Okay. Was Ray out of town or something? Brent Creeley. I mean, I don't.
Ray's out teaching the Bible.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, sir. And he'll be back next week.
Like in the backyard, or is he like traveling the country?
He's traveling.
Oh,
yes.
You preach the gospel to every creature.
It's vacation Bible school
That's
at
what
Ray's house.
You know, I thought maybe he went to the backyard and had a few kids over or something.
He's off preaching the Bible somewhere, leaving us on our own.
Ray is much in demand.
Yes, he is. He's an excellent Bible teacher. Mm-hmm. I just love Ray.
If you want to get in touch with him, go to keepbelieving.com. Keepbelieving.com. All right. Well, so a lot to talk about, a lot going on in the country and internationally, too. But the big news is what's happening in the Oval Office right now, right?
Yes. The Oval Office right now, President Trump, as we speak, is announcing a trade deal with the United Kingdom, otherwise known as Great Britain or England, as some people also refer to it.
I don't think it's otherwise known as, Chris.
Well,
can I correct you there, brother?
Sometimes people are confused with UK and England.
I'm not above you. We're equals here in terms of in the eyes of God. Okay, but the UK is England, Great Britain, and Ireland. True.
Ireland, I guess Wales.
Yes.
Is
England is a separate
Scotland
country.
Correct.
Is a separate. Well, it's not even a country.
Correct.
England. It's its own.
A trade deal with the UK would involve England.
That's what I'm talking about, Chris. Just go with that. Anyway, back to your story, brother.
So Donald Trump, who's the president of the United States of America, is announcing a, quote, major
now,
trade deal.
The United States of America is made up of 50 states, Chris.
Yes.
And but
right.
we trade.
So Trump
soon to be 51.
I liked how you said we're equal, Chris, in the sight of God.
Yes.
But not in terms of AFA.
Right, yes.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Your counterpart in the Oval Office, Mr. President, is announcing a trade deal with a country that used to be our parent when we were part of the United Kingdom.
Right.
And it's a major trade deal. It is something President Trump actually gave a little hint on last night on Truth Social. Caroline Levitt shared that on X. The UK, for people not aware, we have long been a major trade partner with the UK. That was one of the issues that looked like we were going to be there to help them when Brexit began many years ago. And so Donald Trump is announcing the first of major trade deals. This, of course, comes ahead of a weekend meeting with Chinese representatives to talk about trade. We do have some audio here. Steve cut this for us just a moment ago. Clip.
The UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products, but this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries because it'll be really great for the UK also. So they'll also be fast-tracking American goods through their customs process, so our exports go to a very, very quick form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways. Furthermore, in a historic step, the deal includes plans that will bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket, and that's very important. And we feel very, very comfortable with that because it's been a great ally, truly one of our great allies. I mean, a lot of people say our greatest ally.
Now, the stock market appears to like this. As we speak, the Dow is up 189, the NASDAQ is up 108, and the S&P 23.
Well, what is the Chris, you may not know this because we just played the president's announcement of this trade deal with the UK, but what's this economic security blanket? That's the first I've heard of that. I know we've had like a nuclear umbrella over some of our allies where we've said we would protect them in the event of war.
It could be oddly worded reference to what we trade back and forth with the UK. For example, we trade a lot of machinery and transportation equipment in addition to crude oil, gas, and other dry goods to the U.S. So us trading that to them gives them things they can use, and then they export things like cars, pharmaceuticals, and other goods to the U.S.
Okay.
Also, they export James Bond movies
that are made. They're British, but they're made in the United States. So that's kind of an economic
it's a trading
partnership.
agreement.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
Did you know that not all people that have portrayed James Bond are from the UK?
Oh, where are they from?
There was that Roger Lazenby guy that played him once for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I believe he was from either France or Australia.
France?
That's what I was going to say. That's blasphemy. James
Why
Bond.
Why not just have Inspector Clouseau stumbling around through a James Bond movie?
There was a time where James Brolin actually was thought of as possibly portraying him back in the 80s, and he did a screen test for that film. I'm a giant nerd for knowing that, but...
Brad, you've just been soaking in all this knowledge we've been dispensing. What are your thoughts over there on this trade agreement?
Well, with regards to the important part of the trade agreement, we have their James Bond. They get our Mission Impossible.
Duly noted.
That's
along with
Tom
the rest
Cruise.
of the world.
I was
Tom
watching
Cruise.
a little bit of this news conference, which is still going on as we're speaking, but it was really neat. President Trump dominating the news conference. He has a little telephone right to his left there, and he said, I've got the Prime Minister of Britain on the line here, Keir Starmer. You want to say a few words?
Hello.
It's just
Hello.
This is really good. Thank you, Mr. President.
Just a spoonful of sugar.
He said, thank you very much, Donald.
Pip, pip.
Donald. So they're really good buds.
Yeah. Well, evidently both parties are pleased to have this agreement because otherwise they wouldn't be doing this public event from the Oval Office.
Trump needed this.
Yeah, he did.
They needed a victory, quotation marks.
From one of the bigger trading partners. And UK would certainly represent that.
Because the whole tariff war, tariff battle has been huge, has been dominating the headlines. We've seen the stock market going up and down, up and down, up and down. But now they have one that apparently has been inked. And so this is good. I'm very anxious to see what happens this weekend in Switzerland when U.S. negotiators sit down with the Chinese.
Yeah.
See what comes of that.
I think you got a good point here in terms of this is a big win for President Trump and his administration because kind of the talk was, as I was reading articles about the tariff war, he needed a win because that will also be a push for other countries to ink their own deal.
Yeah.
Especially, and maybe that's why he used this phrase, economic security blanket. Maybe there are some promises. And, we used to have most favored nation trade status. And maybe this is kind of a replacement for that where, hey, listen, you get a special deal if you ink a deal now between now and
I think
Memorial Day.
It may have something to do with exclusivity.
Yeah.
In that you're not going to purchase, let's just say, this item from China. You're going to buy it from us.
Yeah.
And so there is that kind of really close neighborly type thing that's in place.
Okay, so just before we move on here from this, because and maybe nobody here knows the answer to this question. Again, to bring it down to like you're a 10-year-old or 9-year-old. So, great UK had tariffs on products being shipped in the going into their region. They're from the U.S. They tariffed us. We didn't tariff them. Trump slaps tariffs on them, and they take their tariffs away, and it's a level playing field. Is that what's happened here?
Yeah, I don't know the details. It's just being announced right now. But in general, I think that's what the deal is. The deal is the UK has to lower its tariffs, or I don't know whether eliminate them. We'll find out the details, and vice versa. So you have more of an even or level playing field when it comes.
That's
to
the whole
trade.
point of Trump's efforts.
Yes,
right. Is to say these countries around the world have imposed tariffs on our products that we send them. We haven't imposed tariffs on them heretofore, so it's unfair. So what am I going to do if I'm President Trump? I'm going to slap tariffs on all these countries that are hitting us with tariffs. Tariffs really amount to just a fee, okay? And then we're going to thereby we're going to even the playing field around the world and the UK. But you have to negotiate these deals with each country individually. So it's going to take some time, but the UK is the first one, I guess.
MSNBC is saying Trump is pressed on details of UK trade deal that's still, quote, being written. So
somebody later today will claim that we're sold a bill of goods over this, and, he's just trying to.
That's why I wonder, we're not able to hear the live press conference right now. We're just reading about it, but that's why I asked the question as simple as I did, and hopefully the White House will give us a simple answer. I don't think President Trump would concede to a trade deal that didn't do the things that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, basically. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. So, man, the president's been very busy. He met with the Prime Minister of Canada. What, was it yesterday or the day before?
Monday, I think it was.
How'd you view that meeting, Fred?
Well, I thought that it was interesting. You had the president and you had the Prime Minister of Canada sitting in those golden chairs in that office. But President Trump, in this case, really dominated the discussion.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister of Canada said very little. A few times, it was almost like the kid putting up his hand, "Can I speak?"
Yeah.
And but Trump, unlike the Zelensky meeting back a month or so ago, the new Prime Minister of Canada is non-combative.
Yeah.
But there was an interesting moment, and maybe you guys talked about this, when Trump was asked from the reporters in the room about the 51st state thing. And the Prime Minister responded basically saying, I just gone through election campaign, and I talked to the people who own Canada, the voters, and they don't want to sell.
Yeah.
Just like you don't want to sell this office, Mr. President. And so that... And that was the one thing that got the most attention. But I think what happened, they met afterwards to talk about tariffs. And my impression is that Canada and the United States are still a long way from an agreement on the tariff issue. A long way. I think what's going to happen, the new Prime Minister is a globalist.
Yeah.
And what he is saying, he wants to open up more trade with Europe.
Yeah.
He was head of the Bank of England at one time. And so he has very close relationships with those people. I think you're going to see a more globalist approach by this Canadian Prime Minister. And I also think he's a banker. And he will use the power of banks to get what he wants. You remember what happened with Trudeau and the trucker protest back at COVID?
Yeah, shut down their bank accounts.
Trudeau shut down their bank accounts.
Yep, froze them.
I don't think this Prime Minister is above doing that to get what he wants. We know what some of these radical climate change, and he's a climate changer, what they do. They go to banks and they say, don't lend money to this group.
Yeah.
Give money to this group who believes in what we believe about climate change.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to see from this Prime Minister of Canada.
Man, climate changer, that sounds like like a game changer.
Climate changer.
He's a climate changer, man. You want to be like him.
Like a superhero.
Yeah.
It's climate changer.
Speaking of which,
yes,
we're going to move to our next story, which involves the myth of global warming.
Yes, Al Gore could not be reached for comment.
The myth of man-made global warming.
Al Gore could not be reached for comment. Yeah.
So I'm going to share this on our Facebook page, and it's from the Daily Mail, although I think New York Post and several other news outlets did report this, and understandably so. The reason is there's been a discovery in Antarctica that has climate change deniers having mass celebrations. Long story short, Antarctica is not melting like Al Gore and many other climate change alarmists have long said it will or would do, which is further proof that maybe they're not right when they tell us that climate change is going to destroy the Earth and cause polar ice caps to melt. And this is really the umpteenth installment of you were wrong when you said this. But that's all the more reason why, again, climate change deniers are celebrating.
Okay, so I read this story. This is involving Antarctica, obviously, and it's a place where they measure. Well, I guess many places where climate scientists measure glaciers and so forth, and to determine how much melting there is going on or not. And in this case, this was a big measurement that was taken in Antarctica, and they discovered that actually the ice is growing. Fred, have I got that basically right?
That is correct. After a number of years of the amount of ice building being diminished, what they're finding in recent years is that the amount of ice is growing, the level of ice, the height of the ice in Antarctica is growing, which is directly opposite to what the Al Gores of this world have been saying.
And there was some shrinking of the ice.
Yes, there was.
For 19 or 20 years.
Right.
And the climate
Trump
change.
was elected.
Yeah. And he slapped a tariff.
He slapped a tariff on that Antarctica.
Yes.
And it stopped melting right away.
That's right.
Big, beautiful ice.
Bigger than you've ever seen before. And so the climate change folks were pointing to that and saying that, see, there's proof. Now we wait to see what they hear what they say now.
Yeah, well, every time, it used to be global warming, then it became climate change, and they started to say that, well, even the Earth's warming temperatures is going to make winter worse. But I've talked to organizations like the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation, and, you can't have it both ways. You can't say a rise in temperatures is going to cause it to be more cold and hotter.
Yeah, these global warming / climate change activists, some of whom include scientists too, they are heads I win, tails you lose. Okay? So anything that happens, they're going to say that's due to man-made global warming or carbon emissions. Anything that happens, whether it's warming or cooling, freezing or whatever, hurricane season. Oh, global warming, man-made global warming.
Right.
I remember when they declared that about 7 years ago. We're going to have the worst hurricane season, superstorms, like 10 of them going to be hitting the U.S. coast.
And then the next year there
was nothing.
Nothing.
There was nothing. Now that doesn't mean there won't be 5 this year, but next year there could be 0. Again,
like always. It's
Thank
always
you.
been this way.
Thank you. Yeah. Cyclical.
Yeah.
The weather, since you can go back, we've had ice ages, we've had warmer times around the globe. You have El Nino that affects the U.S. weather a lot, one way or the other. So it's just whether there's global warming or not going on somewhere. Yes, there may be, but it's not because of it's not man-made.
Well, and let me just say one other thing here. I mean, we can still stay on this story, Chris. It depends what you've got there. But I will say this. If it turns out that we have a period of like 10 years of global cooling, this is going to further damage scientific reputation. The reputation of science, let's put it that way. Broadly speaking, we just went through COVID and all that that happened, and all of that, you got to follow the science. You got to follow the science, all that. And a lot of people have come through that going, they kept telling us X, Y, Z, but it was ABC, and they knew it. And now if this happens with this global climate change thing, then how are people going to, with a straight face, say, you got to follow the science? Because everyone's going to say, remember COVID and remember climate change? We don't know what to believe.
It will ruin or damage the reputation in the minds of some people. But people in media, mainstream media, will find a way to explain this away or get us distracted on something else or or whatnot. And the reason I
Not
say
me.
this.
Not me. They ain't going to get me distracted. On
Well,
nothing
the reason
else.
I say
I'm
this is
focused.
because, like, the Associated Press is a really good example here. For people that are not aware of this, a lot of news outlets, most news outlets run AP material, and sometimes without changing anything. Small market TV stations especially will just rip and read whatever the AP says, and then that's why people think, okay, maybe there is something to climate change. Case in point, there is a story in the news today, and these are some of the headlines. Climate-fueled wildfires cause damage in North Dakota. Climate-fueled wildfires, not flames or gasoline or people made a fire and it spread and all these other things. We're now blaming, like in the headline, before you even get to the story. So that's why I say the news media will do what they can to still make people think that this thing in Antarctica is misleading.
While
because of
that's true, it's going to fall increasingly on deaf ears.
I hope so.
That's the point I'm making, is that the average person on the street, their eyes are going to roll back into their heads when someone starts trying to say, you know what, you shouldn't be running your lawnmower because you're affecting the climate.
Yeah.
We need to do something about cows because of methane emissions.
Yeah.
People are going to be rolling their eyes and saying, just get away from me because you guys have been saying this. And it's the boy who cried wolf.
Meanwhile, the climate alarmists, I do not have this soundbite, but the climate alarmists that have been beating the drum over how we're killing the planet, they're the ones with the biggest carbon footprint because people like John Kerry flying around on private planes. You got Senator Bernie Sanders wanting to fight the oligarchy, but he's going to take a Gulfstream everywhere to do it. They're
Al Gore.
Yeah, I mean, when Joe Biden was president and he was claiming that climate change was the biggest threat to the environment, he was the one causing the problem.
Well,
if you believe the emissions thing.
Yeah, one of the most ridiculous examples of this, I remember. You remember when Mayfield, Kentucky, was hit so hard by that tornado about 3 or 4 years ago? When was that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Look up the date for you.
And that's a community in western Kentucky that they have AFR there too. But after that hit, then either Biden visited or he made a pronouncement. But he said this is because of global warming.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a tornado had never happened before,
especially in this part of the country.
Yeah, and so it was like. You're just exploiting this situation to make your political point, which, by the way, is unproven.
That's right.
So
that was in December of 2021.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to today's. You mean the tornado?
Yes, sir.
That hit Mayfield. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Fred, and UK Chris.
Chris Plaid Woodward.
Hey, I like the plaid shirt, Chris.
I was told my people did come from Wales. So
really?
We are from the UK.
Chris is making plaid great again.
Yes.
Poor Chris. We just give Chris a
Hey,
hard time.
Chris does a great
You got
job.
to pay your dues. You
know
got to
what?
pay your dues on this show.
I got 3 people depending on me to eat, so you can do whatever you want. I'll take it.
Chris just takes one for the family team over here. All right, we will return momentarily. Much more to talk about happening in our country and around the world. The Catholic Church is trying to decide who their new leader will be, who the new pope will be. We'll be back with more after this short time out.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
One day many years ago, several members of a college math class were called to the board to work a problem. One young man went up to begin work on the problem only to make a mistake at the very beginning. Despite the fact that he worked the rest of the problem correctly, he came out with the wrong answer because he had made the mistake at the start. The professor walked to the front of the room after the students had sat down and began going over the problems that the students had worked on. When he came to the one in which the young man had made a mistake at the beginning, He turned to the class and asked a question. How many of you gentlemen are ministerial students? Well, a few hands went up. Gentlemen, he continued, here is a sermon for you. This young man forgot to square at the beginning of the problem, and while the rest of the problem is worked correctly all the way through, he came out with the wrong answer. Now here's the sermon. You leave something undone that you should do at the beginning of life, and the answer will come out wrong at the end of life. Then the professor picked up the eraser from the chalkboard and turned to face the class again. Gentlemen, he said, here is another sermon. He then proceeded to erase the entire problem from the answer working backward. When he came to the place where the mistake had been made, he erased that part, picked up the chalk, and wrote in the correct numbers. Then he turned to the young student and preached his second sermon. Try again, he said. You know, because of the Galilean, that's the way we can approach life. The simple sermon preached by that college professor has been experienced countless times since the carpenter first told his fishermen about the forgiveness of the Creator. It would be an impossible task to find the number of men and women who have come to the end of a problem in life only to find that they had the wrong answer. Then, with heads bowed and ashamed, they heard that grand master of men speak those two words, try again. Another chance, a new start, a clean blackboard. Isn't that one reason he came into our world like he did? To wipe the board clean when we forget to square. Many have experienced that sense of starting again. For them, it opened the doors that seemed shut forever. There are two tragedies involved here. One is that many refuse to admit that they made a mistake. They like to work the problem by their own rules. They accept no other criteria of judgment than their own. And of course, if you never make a mistake, you have no need to correct it. The second tragedy is that those who finally are willing to admit the error fail to let the supreme professor wipe the board clean, correct their error, and say to them, try again. The Father knew that humans so many times need another chance. That's one reason he sent his Son, so that we could, indeed, try again.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. 1 Peter 1:3.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Got to get the popcorn down.
You want me to pick up?
Here we go. So, welcome back, Tim, Ed, Fred, and Chris.
And in your defense, our popcorn is the best on the planet.
It's irresistible. You're a popcorn connoisseur.
So good.
You walk back there to get coffee, and that popcorn aroma just hits you down the hall.
If I could invent a cologne that smelled like that, I would wear it all the time. My wife would hate the smell of butter. She would hear it so often.
Brother Ed goes to the movies every day.
Or at least it smells like it.
Yeah. At the movies, they give you the tub.
Oh, yeah.
The tub of popcorn, and for $20, free refills. That sounds like a good deal, except you think, I'm going to be here 2 hours. How much popcorn can a man eat, you know? Well, if you're sharing it with people.
Yeah, I will say this.
Yeah.
And this is going to reflect poorly on me. Right. I know.
That's okay. We're all human.
But sometimes, now my wife doesn't like to go to the movies, and I rarely go anymore because there's just not anything very, very enticing to go. But if I do go, I'm going with my son and my daughter-in-law.
Right.
All right. And they're always wanting to get one bucket of popcorn and we share it. And I don't do that, okay? First of all, because I don't want to have to run down there all the time. I'm going to pay for it.
You don't want to say pass the bucket.
Yes, I don't want to say pass the bucket, and I'm sorry. I love my son and daughter-in-law.
I know what you're going to say.
I don't want their hands sitting in the bucket of popcorn.
I know.
It's just not sanitary.
I was kind of like that till I got 11 grandchildren. It's futile.
That is true.
You want popcorn, you're going to stick your hand in there with the rest of them.
And when they offer you one, you're going to have to take it from their dirty fingers and let them put it in your mouth.
You're
right about that.
Well, you just lose your germaphobe. All right, so the question before us last half hour, which was a trivia question from, because I remember I had it about a year ago on Trivia Friday.
Oh, okay. What I was talking about?
And that is this. What is the difference between the UK and Great Britain?
That's an excellent question. And for those of you paying attention, I am going to have a question involving this somehow, some way tomorrow on Trivia Friday.
So, okay. So you're not going to give the answer now to what I just asked?
No, we can. We can. But
Chris,
it's going to be on
look
Trivia
that up?
Friday.
I have it looked up.
Okay. What is the answer to the question?
Okay. So you want to know the countries in the UK?
No, the difference between the UK and Great Britain.
Okay. The names Great Britain and United Kingdom are often used interchangeably. However, they are not actually synonymous. The reason for the two names and the difference between them has to do with the expansive history of the British Isles. I'm reading from Britannica.
Okay.
So it's totally accurate.
They ought to
know. It's in their backyard, right? The British Isles are a group of islands off the northwestern coast of Europe. The largest of these islands are Britain and Ireland. Smaller ones include the Isle of Wight. In the Middle Ages, the name Britain was also applied to a small part of France, now known as Brittany. As a result, Great Britain came into use to refer specifically to the island. However, that name had no official significance until 1707, when the island's rival kingdoms of England and Scotland were united as the Kingdom of Great Britain. Now, long story short, the countries that make up...
story.
Thank you.
It doesn't sound short.
I'll share this on our Facebook page. Which countries make up the United Kingdom? The answer is England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
That's Great Britain?
No, that's the UK, United Kingdom.
Okay.
Great Britain would be pretty much England, Scotland, and Wales.
Without
Northern Ireland.
Correct. If
I'm
understanding
use
Britannica
this
correctly.
as a trivia question tomorrow, because it's...
I'll tell you who might know the answer to this, because there's a lot of Christian history.
Yes.
In Great Britain / UK, England.
You're not going to turn to someone named McFarland.
Oh, good. That's a good one. Dr. Alex McFarland joins us, co-host of Exploring the Word with Brother Bert Harper each weekday afternoon here on American Family Radio. Hey, Alex, good morning to you.
Good morning, everybody.
So did you know the answer between what's different about UK and Great Britain?
Partially, but I'm learning here, sitting here listening. Those terms are kind of used interchangeably, but it's different, really.
So, question, McFarland, where does your family heritage hail from?
From Scotland. My dad was really, really into the Scottish genealogy, and supposedly that the McFarlands came here 200 years ago through Charleston, South Carolina. That's what we always heard. But
yeah, well, you know what? Stephen McDowell, who's a good friend of our ministry and is a historian. Stephen's, by the way, who has a podcast now. A very popular podcast on American Family Radio's website. Stephen talks about his heritage, same as yours, McDowell. Max come from
Scotland.
Scotland. I guess some would come from Ireland. Is that right?
Yeah.
Some from Ireland, some Max.
There are some Irish McFarlands, but my breed supposedly came from Scotland.
Mm-hmm. I think I think Mac or Mick. It means like son of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that's what that.
I just saw that.
Means.
Yeah, I can tell you what some people think your name means, Alex.
Is it acceptable for Christian radio?
It is. Yeah. Yes. So the surname McFarland is a variation of McFarlane, meaning son of Parlan. Parlan is a Gaelic name likely derived from Partahan, which is linked to Irish mythology as spirit of the sea waves.
So Alex,
exactly.
Alex is not real. Is that what you're telling us here?
You're exactly right. Son of the ocean wave. That, believe it or not, that's what.
That's pretty cool sounding.
Yeah.
Parlan.
You know the history of migration in the U.S. The many people in the that came into the ports in the Carolinas. Okay. Yes. That was a big. I mean, yes, you had the Northeast. You had New York and Boston and and other places maybe, but you had a big migration into Charleston and some other. I guess was Charleston maybe the biggest port for a long time. There, you know what I'm saying?
Guess.
Savannah. Anyway, but a lot of the Scots and the people from Great Britain, but particularly the Scots, they went to the Carolinas, came over to like Alex's family, and then they spread. They went west, but along the southern part of the U.S.
Yes,
so
and a lot of them created the seed that we use to plant for our grass.
What's that, Ed?
Scots.
Oh, Scots, did they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ever seen ads for the Scots?
Yeah, I've seen. Oh, yeah, the Scots ads. The Scots ads. But if you want to know why there's so many Macs all across Carolinas and Georgia and the South over to Texas and Oklahoma and
we have an Aberdeen not far from here.
Yeah, it's because Tennessee and Kentucky is because of that trace that all the way back to the Scottish people immigrating along in the southern ports of the U.S.
My
really
grandfather
true.
on my mother's side spoke Gaelic.
Oh, really?
Her
Irish?
Irish?
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
Okay.
Mackenzie.
So a Mac.
And where I'm from in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton has a Gaelic college to this day.
Huh.
And they teach the dancing, the sword dancing, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the, what do they call, river dance and
Yeah.
all that. I like watching that. Remember, that was a kind of a fad for a while.
I did that for a while.
And you know what they say?
Video or it didn't happen.
Go ahead. What are you going to say, Alex?
Well, you know, of the McFarlands, we did a lot of family study. There were basically three. There were farmers, lawyers, and preachers. And I've been two of the three.
Yes, farmer.
Farmer and preacher. But a lot of McFarlands in Vicksburg, Mississippi. A lot, interestingly, wound up in the Southwest, like in Arizona and places like that. A lot of Scottish people ended up in the Boston area. But you know what's really interesting is that because of a guy named John Knox, a lot of the Scots were evangelists. I mean, there were a lot of Christian Scottish people, and during the 1700s and the colonial era, and this relates to like the Appalachian region, there are so many Presbyterian churches that were the Scottish Presbyterians up and down, the Appalachian Trail, and Billy Graham's family, they were, heavy Presbyterians, and, it relates to how the European Christians, they migrated over here and, came through Charleston, came through Edenton, which was a port city in North Carolina, and of course in the, Virginia and up there. And we have a great Christian history that, I know the conversation began about the United Kingdom, but my goodness, there was so much in the aftermath of the Reformation, which started in 1517 in Germany. The gospel just spread and spread, throughout England and Wales and all throughout, the British Isles. And then they came over here in colonial America. And our nation is part of Christ's Great Commission.
That's you're talking about church history.
Yeah,
tracing it back. Ed, were you going to say something? You're looking.
I was just going to say. Alex mentioned John Knox. I remembered this. I had to look it up to get the right wording. But Mary, Queen of Scots, is reputed to have said, "I fear the prayers of John Knox more than all the assembled armies of Europe."
Yeah, I've heard that quote.
That
wow,
causes shiver to run down your anybody's spine if you fear God. That praying people do move mountains.
So if you look back at, as I say, church history, and you know how one domino falls and another domino falls, in I'm talking about world church history right here now. So the United States of America was long known as a Christian nation, and the Christianity is still by far the most dominant religion in the U.S., right? And in Canada, in Canada too. And if you trace that back to Europe, you're talking about what Alex is talking about, and with also England producing the Wesley brothers.
Yeah, John and Charles
Wesley and Francis Asbury, and others who came to the U.S. But our and the Pilgrims.
Yeah,
go all the way which preceded Wesley and John. I don't know when John Knox lived in Europe, but in Scotland. But I'm just saying that the Christianity from Europe was transported to the United States and to Canada back in the 1600s. 1700s, the 1600s, you're talking Jamestown and Boston, and things begin to develop in the northeastern part of the United States. But Alex, let me ask you this. And
by the way, John Knox lived in the 1500s.
The 1500s, okay. Prior. Let me ask you this. Maybe you don't know the answer to this question, but why was it that the early church, and by early church, I'm talking about the apostles, okay? They and I'm reading through now, as you guys all have done many times before, but the Acts of the Apostles, and then you get to Corinthians and Romans and all in there, where to Paul, and you just going from town to town to town, starting new Christian, I don't know what they would have called them then, I don't know, fellowships or whatever like that. But is that the reason? Is simply that the reason that the gospel of Jesus Christ and the religion of Christianity was the dominant force became the dominant force in what we know as Europe today, rather than, let's say, the Middle East or Africa, for example?
Yeah, I mean, the early Christians, I mean, they were fervent. They lived and breathed the Great Commission. Now, this is so cool. Okay, Titus 2:11 says, "The grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men." Now, it doesn't mean that everybody had gotten saved, but this is going to blow your mind. Titus was written 37 to 40 years after the cross. So we're talking 4 decades after Jesus died on the cross and rose again. And church historians, and a couple of really good books, Church History in Plain Language by a guy named Bruce Shelley. That's a great book. Christianity Through the Centuries by Earl Carnes. Great book. Another book I would recommend, and I only recommend, Bert and I have a principle. We only recommend a book that we ourselves have read at least once. So Dr. Rick Cornish, The 5-Minute Church Historian. That's a fantastic book. This will blow your mind. 40 years after the cross, the gospel had been taken to all of the civilized world. See, sometimes people say Jesus can't come back until the whole world has heard. Believe it or not, within a generation after Christ had risen, Christians had taken the gospel to the whole wide world. For instance,
even the Orient?
Yes, they had. Christians had gone to the Asian world. They really had. And like, for instance, Wales. Missionaries in the Reformation time were in Wales, and church history tells us Joseph of Arimathea had gone to Wales to preach the gospel. Thomas went to India. There's, Thomas is such a very common surname in India because, doubting Thomas had gone to India. And it's just amazing how the early Christians lived to evangelize people. By the way, I got to tell you this. Sunday night I was in an event with Dinesh D'Souza, a brilliant guy, and he said this, and I think it's really important. He said, look, Muslims today have the fervor of 7th century Arabs, and atheists have the fervor of Voltaire or a Nietzsche. He said, we Christians, we don't have the fervor of the disciples in the book of Acts. And Dinesh, man, he got to preaching, and he said, we Christians, he said, read the book of Acts and realize that if we're a disciple, we are to have that very same fervor and zeal and commitment. And, guys, let me chase a rabbit for just a second. I was very blessed. My evangelism professor was Bill Bright, and he taught at Liberty, the founder of Campus Crusade. And Bill Bright had this illustration. He said, if every born-again Christian would lead one soul to Christ in the next 12 months, and that person led a soul to Christ in the next 12 months beyond that, then we would run out of humans in under 8 years. I mean, and we can do this. And guys, I was so shy and such an introvert, but I wanted to lead somebody to Christ. I was like, Lord, please let me lead somebody to Christ. And God answered that prayer many times over. Here's my point. I used to give that illustration at pastors' conferences, and pastors said, I had pastors telling me, Alex, that's unrealistic. The world just probably can't be evangelized. Now, something happened in 2020 called COVID, and this is amazing. In the quarantines, all right, February 1st of 2021, nobody had heard of COVID, really. By March 1st, the whole wide world was wearing masks. Seriously. In a 30-day period, the world went from not really knowing about COVID, and 4 to 5 weeks later, the whole wide world was masked up. And my point in sharing that is that, yes, because God would not give us an assignment that's irrational or undoable. And if the body of Christ were to unite and pray and speak with a unified voice, I believe the world, not everybody's going to believe, but the whole wide world could be told that this great commission that Christ has given us, it really is doable if we made it the priority.
Amen. Amen. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. So, Alex, you got your youth camps coming up this summer?
We do. The website is equipretreat.org, and we're going to be in Montana. My goodness, no, we're not in Minnesota. Although we did a camp last year in Minnesota. We're in Montana. We're in Georgia. We're in Virginia, and I would just encourage people to please pray for us. We'll have roughly 1,200 teenagers in 7 summer camps, and every year, last year we had 168 kids get saved. The majority of the kids already are Christian, but we're teaching biblical worldview and how to defend the Christian faith.
Amen. Well, listen, thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate you being on with us this morning. McFarland.
McFarland.
Hey, and by the way, everybody, just next month is the Activate Summit that is going to be in Tupelo.
And you're going to be speaking there.
Yeah, and listen, folks, Ed Vitagliano, in person, live, one of the greatest thinkers that you'll ever hear, and Frank Turek.
I so appreciate you saying that, but nobody's coming to hear me.
It does say the GOAT on the side of his Diet Coke this morning.
Frank Turek will be there, Abraham Hamilton III, of course, Alex will, and
Todd Herman.
Todd Herman
and Abraham Hamilton III. This Activate conference, it's much like the Marriage and Family Life Conference that we put on here in Tupelo each summer for about 3 or 4 years. So this is coming up
June 12th through the 14th.
Okay.
Yeah.
June 12th through the 14th, and it's limited seating. About sold out.
Yeah, in fact,
Are we sold out?
Is it still open?
Anyway, where do you go to register?
AFA.net/summit.
AFA.net/summit, and that's June 12th through the 14th here in Tupelo, Mississippi.
It does say register now, so I guess folks can still register.
I posted the link on our Facebook page.
Did you? Okay. On our Today's Issues Facebook page. But it's going to be a dynamic conference, and they do have a kids track.
All right, my daughter-in-law said registration ends tomorrow. So, folks, it is very important that you register now if you want to come.
So how do they go and read about the itinerary?
Well, they go to activate.afa.net/summit. Activate.afa.net/summit. Or you can just go, I think, if you type in afa.net/summit, it will take you to this same website. And you can see the schedule there. There is the kids track, of course, for under 13. But 13 and up will be in with the adults. They'll be getting both barrels from the speakers. So by the way, J.J. Jasper will be doing comedy on our opening night there on Thursday. And then all day Friday, we've got speakers, and Saturday.
All right.
It's going to be some great stuff.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Take care.
God bless. Thank you.
Okay. That's Dr. Alex McFarland. Fred, any thoughts on what Alex was talking about?
Well, absolutely. The spread of the gospel, he had some fascinating points of view on that and how quickly the gospel spread. But, we're not all called to be missionaries as far as going to foreign countries.
I wasn't.
No.
I never felt the calling. I mean, did you?
No.
But
do you have to feel it, though, a calling?
Well, I don't know if you feel it. You just, like anything else in life, a calling is just something that kind of absorbs you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but your street, your neighborhood, your friends, your relatives, they're the mission field that you always have.
I'm with you there.
And what I pray for is opportunities.
Yeah.
And the best time I have found to witness is when somebody has a question. Why do you believe that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Simple question like that. Boy, that opens the door because they asked it.
Right.
They're inquiring. And I pray that people, the Holy Spirit, will lead them to ask those kinds of questions.
I'll tell you something that my pastor, Scooter Noland, who is a board member I think he still is a board member for AFA. I think he rotates off this year. But one of the things he said that my wife and I try to do, he said, if you're at a restaurant and your waitress comes up, you can say, my wife and I are about to pray over our meal. Is there anything we can pray for you about?
Yeah.
And sometimes that touches people's hearts and they want to hear more.
Absolutely. I've heard great testimonies based on that.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of Today's Issues on American Family Radio. And Steve Paisley Jordahl will replace Chris Plaid Woodward over here. Thank you, Chris.
Chris is saying, please don't let me get that nickname.
We'll be back.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Sometimes being an insider means you understand the joke that only certain ones really know. Other times, it gets you into exclusive places. As an AFA insider, you'll get information about issues and policies that can dramatically impact our families and our Christian rights, and you won't have to travel to D.C. or even dress up to get it. Find out more and sign up at afa.net/activism.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump has announced the first of what he says will be many trade deals. a first-of-its-kind agreement with the United Kingdom.
The UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products, but this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries because it'll be really great for the UK also. So they'll also be fast-tracking American goods through their customs process, so our exports go to a very, very quick form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways. Furthermore, in a historic step, the deal includes plans that will bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket, and that's very important. And we feel very, very comfortable with that because it's been a great ally, truly one of our great allies.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem addressing concerns about how her agency is handling illegal aliens and deportations at a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee hearing on Thursday. In her opening statement, she says everything DHS does is for the good of public safety.
We're enforcing immigration laws to identify, arrest, detain, and remove dangerous illegals from our country. We're prioritizing those who have committed crimes, aliens who are a threat to our public safety and to our national security.
The House voting to rename the Gulf of Mexico.
The House passing a resolution to codify President Trump's executive order to make the Gulf of America official. The bill passing along party lines with Democrats saying the move is unserious. Congressman Jared Huffman says Republicans
are simply bending the knee to Donald Trump and stroking one man's ego in everything they do.
The resolution would still need to pass the Senate in order to become official. But the Trump administration has already been referring to the body of water as the Gulf of America instead of the Gulf of Mexico. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
It's happened again. An anti-Jewish mob stormed a building at Columbia University in New York. At least 80 of them were arrested. Columbia student Eden Yediger was trying to study in the library when it happened.
I, along with hundreds, if not thousands of other students, were just trying to study for finals and complete our coursework when dozens of masked vandals, the vast majority of whom we believe are students, flooded into the library, chanting "Free Palestine," calling for an intifada revolution, and calling in Arabic for one state, one Palestinian state from the river to the sea. Not only was it absolutely shocking and intimidating, but it was disrupting one of the most basic functions of the university. And it's ridiculous to me that almost 2 years later, since October 7th, since these sort of disruptions have become commonplace, that this happened during finals week.
A Texas measure supports parents in their battle against so-called gender transition.
The measure is HB 1655. The Dallas Morning News says Texas schools could be fined if a teacher refers to students by their gender identity or preferred pronouns instead of biological sex. Public school boards would also be required to adopt policies preventing any employee from assisting in a student's social transition. Mary Elizabeth Castle of Texas Values.
HB 1655 appears to address what has been kind of a common problem lately where a lot of teachers are keeping the social transitioning of children, which is basically allowing the child to identify as the opposite sex in school and keeping that from parents. And so this bill appears to create some transparency so parents are involved, and so the correct measures can be taken by the parents to address these either gender dysphoria or some other issues.
She said the heart of the measure is to ensure open communication between parents and teachers.
What we want to make sure is that if there's anything going on with a child, and there's different bills addressing this session, where it's psychological, then the parent should be notified. And this is a very specific example of that.
I'm Robert Thornton.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Some chances come along once in a lifetime. When they do, you've got to be ready. AFA Action's Center for Judicial Renewal has such a chance to help the Trump administration make good choices, nominating men and women as Supreme Court justices and other federal judges. Your gift helps make that possible, and we'll give you a free Bible study by Stephen McDowell, God's Blueprint for Life, Liberty, and Property, as a thank you gift. Visit afaaction.net today. afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman. president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues is the name of this show on AFR, and we do offer this broadcast and others that we feature here on American Family Radio as podcast, so you can listen on demand. This show will be up on our AFR.net website as a podcast, like within half an hour or so of when we finish the live broadcast. Now, hey, Brent Creeley, our producer before. By the way, Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us.
Good morning, everybody.
Steve. Steve's here, Fred's here, and Ed's here, and I'm Tim. Let me ask you this. The folks who want to get the podcast, maybe they're new to this. Podcast, it means you can listen anytime you want to any show you want to.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
So how can they sign up or register, or how do you do it if you want to get the Today's Issues podcast sent to your phone or iPad daily when it's released? Do you know anything about that? Okay, you don't. Does anybody here know anything? Y'all have heard of podcast, right?
Yeah, but no, we don't.
How to get to it? I'm not sure how to send it to. You can subscribe.
No, we don't. We don't do that.
Okay.
They have to go to AFR.
Is it like a religious thing?
Yeah.
Reason why we don't do that or something?
No, it's.
I'm asking the question wrong. Why am I sounding ignorant? Because I am. I don't do podcasts.
You're a podcaster, actually, by definition now.
I know, but what I'm saying is I don't listen to podcasts very often. Okay, myself.
Yeah.
But I know people who get podcasts. Our podcast numbers for our shows on AFR are like a million. Mm-hmm. For the month, if you totaled them all up or something like that. So people evidently are.
They can go to afr.net, our website,
yeah,
and there's a tab that says podcast.
Okay.
Just click that, and it shows the podcast available that we have.
Yeah.
And then they can also download our app. Our app has the podcast on there as well.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about that?
I mean, we don't. We would have to have all sorts of lists and keep those lists up to date. A lot of times people want to listen to podcasts when they want to listen to them. And they don't necessarily want to get. I mean, we would wind up sending 5 or 6 emails a day to people if they have 5 or 6 different podcasts.
You think that would annoy people?
I think it would.
5 or 6 emails a day? You think that?
I mean, from us.
From us, you think that would bother people?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you don't want to fill up the. So what they do is it's very simple to go, as Brent said, to afr.net, either on
the podcast.
What's that? Yeah,
check
the podcast.
Or the app.
Or the app.
All right, Steve, what do you got?
I think it's probably worth noting at the very top here, just in passing, that 80 years ago today, the Nazis surrendered to the Allied forces in Europe, and we have come to know this as VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, for World War II. The end of the total war came in August with VJ Day, Victory in Japan, but today was Victory in Europe, and we have a pope.
Is that white smoke?
That is white smoke.
Wait a minute, that was a segue?
That was a segue.
Well, this is breaking news.
Breaking news, yeah. We're watching, we got, yes.
White smoke signals pope has been chosen, and it is on Fox, MSNBC, BBC, and CNN. They're all showing that. There are tens of thousands of people in the Vatican waiting, and they're all cheering.
I don't know who the new pope is, but I'm already upset with him for interrupting my VE Day story.
Breaking news is just that.
They didn't get your text, Steve.
Apparently not.
So can you get this on podcast anywhere? Does anybody know?
You want me to send you an
What's
email?
happening at the Vatican? Yeah, send me an email.
All right, so we will, as soon as we find out, we will pass that news along.
We'll let you know if we know during this half hour.
Just know this, I can guarantee you it won't be a white Southerner.
A white Southerner.
White American Southerner will not be the Pope.
Has an American ever been a Pope?
I don't know.
I don't think an American. Usually,
you think that's on purpose?
For a long time, they had to be Italian. Back in the good old days.
You could have been Pope.
Yeah. Oh, no,
You'd have to be Catholic, I suppose.
I'm married. But.
All right, go ahead. Finish your VE story.
Yeah, I just want to give you guys a little sense of what it was like on the day. This is the BBC announcing that it was happening, and then you're going to hear Winston Churchill, who was standing up at the balcony of his talking to a crowd, like they do in England. Cut 10.
This is the BBC Home Service. We're interrupting programs to make the following announcement. It is understood that in accordance with arrangements between the three great powers, an official announcement will be broadcast by the Prime Minister at 3 o'clock tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, the 8th of May. In view of this fact, tomorrow, Tuesday, will be treated as Victory in Europe Day and will be regarded as a holiday.
This is your victory. Victory of the cause of freedom in every land. In all our long history, we have never seen a greater day than this.
Who is that?
That was Winston Churchill.
Okay.
So that was, it's hard to imagine what that must have felt like, Europe being embroiled in war ignited by the Nazis in Germany in 1939. So 6 years now, of course, that 6 years didn't engulf all of Europe, but it eventually did. And cities shattered by
London.
London attack. I mean, all that, the number of lives, young men losing their lives in combat, and then to be told the war's over.
Wasn't it 500,000 American? Was that 500,000 American soldiers? I believe I'm right about that.
I will check on that. But anyway, so that was the it's 70 years, right?
80.
80.
Yeah.
80 years ago today.
Well, yeah, that's remarkable. I'm glad we have that audio.
Yeah.
For
So approximately during World War II, approximately 405,000 to 416, almost 417,000 American military personnel died.
That didn't include the injured.
It does not include all the casualties of that.
I mean, the Canadians probably lost.
Yes, Canadian losses were
30,000 probably or more.
Absolutely huge.
It's the last war that we actually, I don't know, you don't take pride in war, but even at the time, we were very proud of what we did in helping defeat
The country
Nazis.
wasn't divided.
No. Well, and think about it. After the next war was Korea, which still hasn't ended technically. And then there was Vietnam, which was so controversial. And then you go into all the little exploratory wars like in Somalia or Nicaragua and all that kind of stuff. And then the Gulf Wars. I think that when we freed Kuwait, that was another war that we could take pride in. But this was the World War II is the last big conflict that seemed like a just war, that there were clear sides that everybody agreed needed to happen. And our soldiers who raided D-Day, the beach of Normandy, D-Day, the original anti-fascists.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's remarkable that we have that audio. Winston Churchill, I'm sure Franklin Delano Roosevelt, issued the same kind of a proclamation.
Very few American soldiers left from that conflict. The numbers,
right?
Now today, yeah.
Well, you're talking 80 years later.
Yeah.
If they're 20 or just under, you're talking about close to 100 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I remember too is that iconic picture, that photograph that we've all seen before of the soldier kissing the nurse.
Yeah,
that was the VJ Day. That was the end of.
That was VJ Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still, that was when our soldiers came home from the Pacific.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you had VE Day, Victory in Europe, and then you had VJ Day. How long apart were those days?
Well, August. So
May to August.
So May to August.
Yeah. Okay, so somewhere in that interim is when we bombed.
Right before
Nagasaki.
Yeah, a couple days before Japan decided to call it a day because they were going to defend Japan to the last man. It was the cult of Japanese divinity of their emperor and everything. People were ready to lay down their life, and it would have been a bloody conflagration. Millions, probably more people die if they hadn't dropped the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
It ended the war immediately.
And then I was just going to say, and then after VE Day, Adolf Hitler left and snuck away to Brazil. And they started a base on the dark side of the moon.
That's right.
Those are actually two conspiracies that live to this day. I think the base on the moon is just.
I think they might have
silliness, but
dispelled that one.
Yeah.
No, there was the bunker. Such a sad story because his top generals were with him. I'm thinking it was who was it that had his kids in the bunker with him?
They all committed suicide.
They all committed suicide.
Yeah,
they killed the kids and committed suicide with Hitler.
Yep.
Eva Braun. Sad day.
I don't think so.
Well, happy day. Sad for the kids, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
they killed 6 million people.
Yes. Yeah.
6 million Jews. It was a happy day for the Jews.
Yep.
And for Europe. I know what you're saying.
Thank you.
Human. It's tragic and sad what happened in Hitler's life that led to that point.
Just thinking that was it who was it that was with him? Hermann Göring maybe had his kids and his wife were in there, and they killed their children before they killed themselves.
You know what that only proves, though? It only proves that evil does exist.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So if you doubt what the Bible says about evil existing, look at Hitler, Adolf Hitler, and what he. Well, there are many examples of this down through history, but certainly that's the one we're talking about because of VE.
But here's what's shocking: we're 80 years since the end of that war.
Yeah,
and you just mentioned the Nazis killing 6 million Jews. The hatred of the Jewish people continues.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it's being manifested on our university campuses.
It is.
Last night at Columbia University again, kids stormed a library where other kids were trying to study for final exams.
Were they looking for Jews or something?
Well,
they were what they call pro-Palestinian protesters.
But they're anti-Israel.
Yeah,
and
80 of them were arrested.
Anti-Semitism. We had another hearing yesterday of more university presidents. They're on the hot seat because they're allowing anti-Semitism on the campuses of U.S. universities. It's appalling.
It seems like, by the way, in answer to your question earlier, Steve, it was Joseph Goebbels, how you pronounce his name, but he and his wife Magda poisoned their 6 children and then killed themselves in the bunker with Hitler. But what I was going to say in answer to what you were saying, Fred, is that it seems like when an ideology, an evil ideology takes root, it inevitably turns its attention to the Jews.
Yeah.
So you got Nazism in Germany, fascism in other places in Europe, leading to World War II, including Italy and Spain, other places. And now you have this radicalized fundamentalist version of Islam. Some people think it's just Islam itself, but I will at least grant that you have Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah and all that, and you have the corresponding targeting of Jews. So when you have a wicked ideology ascendant, it ultimately seems to turn against the Jews. And for a lot of Jews in America, this was a shock that all this started to happen on college campuses. And there were professors and administrations on college campuses like Columbia that didn't seem to want to do anything.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
Next story.
All right. I wanted to talk about what was going on in Abu Dhabi. Did you know that Disney has a new theme park they're building in Abu Dhabi?
This is true. This is not a
it's real. And I'm not just bringing this story up because I like to say Abu Dhabi. It is fun to say. But this is an Arabic Muslim country in the UAE. And do you remember the big stink that Disney made over Florida's law that said you can't have pornographic books in kids' libraries that they mistakenly dubbed as "Don't Say Gay." Well, apparently their outrage only goes as far as their checkbook, because they're opening a brand new theme park in Abu Dhabi, and it being a Muslim country, they really, you don't say gay there.
Yes.
And so kind of a little bit of a double standard, I think.
Absolutely a double standard. Listen, we see this with the woke crowd, and I'm not saying the conservatives can't fall into this trap, but we've seen this with the woke crowd talking about diversity and inclusion and all that, while these same corporations make bundles of money in China, while the Chinese are persecuting Muslims in that country and making a lot of their products with slave labor. Now you have Disney that protested against Florida for wanting to remove these perverse books from school and from being given to kids. Now they're opening a Disney World in a place that's going to feed cash to the company, all in a Muslim country where it's illegal to be homosexual.
Yep.
I don't know how you can
no,
say the word hypocrisy.
Because a lot of these companies they're only woke when it's convenient for them. They want to appeal to their so in America they're going to be pro LGBT and celebrate June Pride Month and all this stuff, all the while building a theme park.
Yeah.
With all the Disney, the Disney theme park.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Somebody said technically somebody else is building it, but they're licensing the Disney name. Well, the same thing.
They're not going to license.
No.
AFA can't. Not that we would want to.
Yeah.
AFA can't build a Disney theme park, no matter what pitch we make to them. They're not going to license their name.
Right. So again, just real quick. So when Disney slams Governor Ron DeSantis for saying we're not going to talk about sex with our children in school, and then Disney and others turn that into, oh, he's saying don't say gay. It's anti-gay. Governor DeSantis, anti-gay. This same company now is building a theme park in a country where they flog gay people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the lighter punishments.
Or flog or other more heinous acts. All right, so you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network.
Still waiting for the new pope, but hey, I've got a solution to the student debt.
The new pope has been
chosen, but not named. We're waiting for the name, and we'll let you know if we see this.
And they're saying, the news outlets are saying any moment,
yeah,
the announcement of the new pope from the Vatican.
So at the risk of being interrupted again.
Sorry, Steve.
No, not by you, by the Pope. I got a solution to the student debt problem. You know, all these kids that are graduating from college with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah.
And they took a, feminist studies thing. They're never, ever going to be paid back. Do you know that trade companies are offering $70,000 a year job to high school juniors to come right out of high school and start in a trade like construction, where you don't need college to do that, and you're starting on $70,000 starting by the time you finish your apprenticeship and are a tradesman. That's six figures easy.
Yeah. Now that doesn't help the kids who are in debt $200,000 in college with a worthless degree. Not all degrees are worthless from college, but it doesn't help them. But going forward, a lot of young people could choose this route.
It helps me because there's fewer people I'm going to have to pay off their student debt loan. Just saying.
There's a character, Mike Rowe. You may be familiar with him.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Mike Rowe has been on talk shows for the last 2 or 3 years, saying, why are so many kids going off to university, to your point, Ed? They're getting these degrees, but they never use them to get a job.
Right.
You don't need all 4 years and $200,000 of debt.
Yeah.
He says, why aren't we encouraging more young people become welders, pipe fitters, all of these sorts of things? There's a reason why these high school juniors are now being hired for these jobs, because these companies cannot find people who want to do this work, and it's good paying work.
And I'll tell you something else. A lot of the jobs you can get through a college degree may become victims of artificial intelligence, AI, in the near future. They're talking about AI being able to do this and that, including even writing, writing, for, journalistic purposes and things of that
Radio
nature.
talk show host.
There you go. Radio talk show host. But you're probably not in our lifetime going to have robots doing plumbing work.
No.
Or welding.
Yeah.
Maybe some welding, but
that's another good point. You know, they say that medicine in this country is broken. Higher education is just as broken as medicine. It's just not as many people interact with it.
And it is true on a practical level. A lot of the far left ideology that's taught on college campuses around the country is one thing, but just the idea of, okay, I'm going to spend X number of dollars to get an education, or your parents are going to pay for it or whatever. You don't have the luxury any longer of that not being applicable to your. In other words, not caring whether your major makes a difference or not. You can't. Now you need to go to college, or go to, in this case, sort of trade school, to learn something to do that's going to help you make a living.
Yeah.
At least give you. Now, not a lot of people don't end up in the occupation that they started out in necessarily. Yes. But I'm just saying what you're talking about right here is that there's going to be there is a growing demand for jobs like we're talking about.
Skilled trades.
Skilled trades. And you have companies that are looking for people, and they're willing to pay them even if they're juniors in high school, and say, okay, you get out of high school. And I've known people like this. I've noticed this phenomenon. Mm-hmm. It's about to become normal, where people say, well, my son's not going to college in a traditional way. He's decided to go to plumbing school or to
work with computers or
whatever, something specific. But the hands-on physical labor jobs that we're talking about here, that's going to become much in demand. They're going to get paid a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and there's an airline company in Germany. I remember this 10 years ago.
Lufthansa.
Yeah, Lufthansa. They were trying to get people right out of high school. Mm-hmm. They said, you come work for us. We will train you in one field or another to work with our airline, and you will have a job for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And they make a good living, but there's that kind of loyalty to the employee and an employee to the company. Mm-hmm. And that was right out of high school. They said, we'll teach you what you need to know.
Yeah.
You don't have to go take a class on Shakespeare, to work at our airline.
And, a lot of these kids today, and we all know them, our children or grandchildren, they get to be 13, 14, 15. They are technological whizzes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh?
Right.
Already.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So they know the language of the computer/internet world.
Yeah. Some of these young people can just get a job helping my wife to figure out how to work her apps. That's a full-time job at my house.
Hey, if you tell her to come by here at lunch, I can help her with podcasts.
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, I know what the first question is going to be on tomorrow's Trivia Friday. It's who's the new pope? Because at this point we don't know, but you'll know by tomorrow.
That's right. They're expecting any moment the announcement of which man was elected as pope of the Roman Catholic Church.
I bet he's going to be unmarried. You watch and see.
Yes,
probably.
Be back tomorrow.